To talk about right now, because it is time to talk about your money right here on Good Morning Quad City. But first, let's go ahead and take a look at how the stock market is doing at the end of last week's trading. S&P 500 up for a little over 4.5%. NASDAQ up over 5%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average just under 5, well, over, as you can see right there. All right, so for most people buying a home, you know, it is the largest purchase that a single person or a couple will ever make. But a combination of rising home prices right now and soaring mortgage rates has a lot of experts projecting we could see a collapse in the housing market. Over the past 12 months, in fact, the average rate on a 30-year fixed mortgage, listen to the numbers, it's shot up from 3.2%, in fact, in some instances, even lower than 3%, to 7.2%. That's the highest in 22 years. Financial advisor Mark Gravicheski joining us now live this morning via Zoom. Mark, you're in Chicago this morning. Thanks for waking up with us.
Good morning, Ann. Good to see you again. But first off, I couldn't help but overhear you and David talking about Andrew's Halloween squirrel costume.
Yes.
I think you need to convince Andrew to one of these days do the weather in that squirrel costume that I think has piqued everybody's curiosity.
Okay. I think we can do that for you, Mark.
Yes, spoken.
Let's get back and talk about the numbers, though. You know, for those of us that bought a house in 2007, 2008, 2009, do you expect another housing bubble similar to the one that we had back in the 2008 area?
I do think we'll see some type of contraction in the housing market, Ann. But look, we really need to distinguish what we saw, back in 2007, 2008 versus today. Back in 07 and 08, we had a massive oversupply of homes and a lot of speculators buying houses simply as an investment. And once that consumer demand and once that speculation started to dry up, all that excess inventory of homes led to that very chaotic collapse in the housing market. But for the past, 2+ years, the surge in home prices we've seen is more to the fact that, the labor shortage and supply chain issues really limited the construction and therefore the availability of homes. Now, to your point, we are starting to see some weakness in the housing market. Over the last 12 months, the number of homes sold has fallen by almost 25%. However, Ann, home prices are still higher by about 8.5%. And it's because of that limited inventory of homes that we had over the past, 2+ years where, yes, prices will likely decline, but not to the extent of what we saw all the way back in 2007 and 2008.
There's still some people who haven't recovered from what happened in 2008. But
you're right. Yeah.
Given all the uncertainty that we are now seeing in the housing market and the fact that we're hearing more and more, it seems every single day we're seeing and hearing more concerns about a recession, is it a good time to buy a house?
Well, it really becomes an issue of affordability. And, despite the decline in the number of sales, again, prices are still about 8.4% higher than they were last year. And over the past 12 months, as you pointed out in your opening, the average rate on a 30-year mortgage has risen from 3.2 to 7.2%. And that means for a $300,000 home with someone paying a 20% down payment, that higher mortgage rate, Annie, is now costing you about an extra $500 a month. But look, I don't think there's anything that should prevent you from buying a home for you and your family. Yes, mortgage rates are now a little bit above that 7% rate, but it's a far cry from, the 16, the 17, the 18% rates we had back in the early 1980s. And once rates do start to decline, you can reconsider refinancing at a lower rate. But certainly now it is not the time to overspend and overreach on your home, so to speak. Shop around for the best mortgage rate you can get and stick to a home that's within your budget.
So when do you, I'm throwing this out there to you right now, when do you see us? I know a lot of people who got interest rates in the 2%, 2.8%, 2.6%. Do you think that's coming back anytime soon? And what do you say to the people who are trying to basically time out the market and delay purchasing a home until mortgage rates come down a little bit?
That's a great question, and it's kind of difficult. You're almost kind of looking through that crystal ball or trying to read the tea leaves. Interest rates in general are expected to remain fairly high, for the rest of the year and most likely throughout all of the next year into 2023. Now, whether interest rates, and that means along with mortgage rates, go a little bit higher, go a little bit lower, will ultimately depend on the state of inflation. If inflation remains stubbornly high, and many experts are projecting that, interest rates and mortgage rates will likely remain high as well. But again, that inflationary outlook and it is still very cloudy. So it's going to be extremely difficult to try and time your housing purchase to exactly when mortgage rates will finally start to decline.
All right, Mark, thank you for your expertise this morning. We will see you next Monday.
Great to see you again, and work on Andrew on that squirrel out there. Everybody wants to see him.
We'll deliver the message for you, Mark. See you next week.
All right, thank you.